Telecoms' NBN weekly chat. This week I don't have my trusty steed in Adam Drummond helping me out, so bear with me. But today I thought we'd tackle some of the questions which have been coming in over the Facebook chat over the last few weeks. We've had a really good response for people, obviously looking to us for some assistance or help trying to find out what's going on with their NBN in their region or NBN at their address. And I thought probably the best way or the easiest way for us to tackle this is just to run through what we've done for some of our existing customers and some of the challenges that they've had. Particularly one example which is just top of mind because it happened in the last couple of days with an NBN connection which went awry with one of the major telcos and left the customer without internet in his new shed in his new office for about 2.5 to 3 months, which unfortunately is something we hear a lot of every week with customers struggling with their existing service provider and not getting any understanding as to what is actually going on. So I thought I'd just first we're discussing fibre to the node connections here because that's the majority of our customer base or the majority of people's issues at the moment on NBN. And so when you're going to place an NBN order, you're either going to be adding a new service or transferring a service. So like you could see on the screen, that's going to be what they call a service class 12, which is a new connection, a line that's not been connected to the NBN network, that's still on the old analog PSTN network or the old Telstra network and is coming across. Or we're talking about service class 13, which is a transfer of a service from your existing NBN service provider to a new NBN service provider. Now, sometimes this gets a bit muddy because if you've already connected to the NBN but the service has never gone live, that doesn't necessarily mean that the line isn't actually connected physically to the NBN network. It means the reason why it's not working is likely speaking going to be one or two things. And like this slide suggests, you've got the NBN network on the left and you've got your main distribution frame or where all your phone lines come into your property in the centre. So the NBN is only responsible for getting it live to the MDF. Now at that point it's your responsibility to make sure that it is live from the MDF to wherever you want it in your premises. And the example I'm going to run through was a transferred service where everything had gone wrong. So what we're talking about, this slide here, sorry, it's probably a bit early, but it basically shows you what to expect when you're looking at a router which is connected to what you think is a live NBN service. If you see a red DSL light or a blank DSL light, that essentially means there's no sync on the service, which means it hasn't been jumpered correctly to the NBN. But we'll get back to that in a second. So the idea here is if you're transferring, with this particular example, we transferred a service from one of the major telecommunication providers in Australia, and they'd spent 2.5 months trying to get the guy connected and failed pretty miserably from what I could see. So what actually happened was he moved in, they came in and they tagged the line at the MDF. So like we saw on the slide there, the NBN had apparently connected to the MDF. And when you looked at the property, there was a tag there with an NBN sticker just here. So you could see that the NBN had actually turned up and apparently done what they said they were going to do. His property was in a big shed, so he was this side of the unit block. So he had a cabling guy come in. His office was in the front section. He had a cabling guy come in and plug his phone lines into a little box out the front, and that's where the MDF was this section here. Okay, so according to the service provider and NBN, the actual connection was live at the MDF, so should be live in the property. So when he called me 2.5 months after after this saga started, he had no internet, he had nothing at his address. And it wasn't a particularly complicated situation because it was a brand new service, and he had done what he thought was within his responsibility. So essentially he'd pulled the line over to here, and he had 2 or 3 lines tagged at the MDF saying that these were his services, and NBN had just tagged a couple of different lines. So between his service provider and NBN, they'd managed to miss each other by literally a couple of copper pairs. So even if it was live at the MDF, he would never have known because he was testing it at his phone line in the office, and unsurprisingly it wasn't working. So what we did was we just transferred this currently like not working service to our services away from the incumbent telco. It took us about 24 hours to get the service from one provider live on our network, and we went in and tested what was going on. And what we discovered was what I just went through there, that for some reason all these techs had managed to come in, or linesmen had managed to come in and not notice that these lines just hadn't been connected together. So you essentially, if you've got all your lines in here, you know, the NBN was tagged there and his line was here. So all we did was just put a line in there to connect the two together so that we could test in his office whether the internet was working and whether the NBN was live. What we noticed was, you know, going back to that last slide, was whether that there was no DSL light. So we could tell that there was no sync on this service. So in NBN world, you're always going to have one or two. It's always going to be one or two problems. It's either going to be an internal issue, internal, or external. So internal is your ability to make sure that you have cabled correctly from where this from in the MDF to where you want it in your service. At that point, you know you've done everything you need to do. If you then have an issue with if then you're still having issues, then the issue is actually not going to be internal. You know you've done your job. It's an external problem. So that's when we can go back to the NBN and start discussing with them what the real problems are with the service. At that point, when you know there's no sync on the service, you know on a fibre to the node connection that it hasn't been jumpered correctly. So literally speaking, or physically speaking, the NBN tech has not plugged in your copper lines onto the NBN core network to allow it to connect to the NBN. So essentially, this section here is broken. At that point, we're able to, because we've already worked out what's going on internally and what the problem is, made sure that you have done your due diligence to make sure that your connection has the best opportunity or an opportunity of going live. We're then able to go and challenge NBN and tell them exactly what the problem is. And this is something that a lot of the big telcos aren't really very good at, or don't necessarily take the time and care and attention to do. Essentially what they do is they say, yeah, okay, NBN service isn't working, log a fault, not working. Tech has to go out and try and decipher or figure out what's going on. The issue is that guy, he hasn't been in your business ever before perhaps, or just turns up and doesn't really know where the issue might be. Because NBN is responsible for this side, and you are responsible for this side, it's quite easy for them to turn around and just point the finger in the direction of yourself and say, yeah, you fix it. But the issue is you need to have a service provider that's got your back, that understands what the problem might be, and be able to liaise with the NBN service providers to be able to make sure that your connection goes live. Okay? So what we were able to do in this situation was just call up the NBN, tell them exactly what the problem was, and within a couple of days of this guy transferring the service to us, after 2.5 months with probably Australia's largest telecoms provider, we managed to get them up and running. And now he's got a pretty fast NBN connection. He can only get 50/20, so like last week where we were talking about the ACCC, and we noted as soon as we got there that he was only able to get up to 50/20, so we just reined back his plan so that he's on that service, and so he's not paying for something that he's not able to achieve. And now the guy's got an active NBN service and can start to build his office and start to build his business, which realistically is what we're all looking for, as a simple solution to our problems. Other than that, that's the sort of thing that we deal with a lot when it comes to NBN connections, particularly in a business where you have 50, 100, 200 phone lines coming into a property. Being able to understand what your responsibility is and how to get it fixed is integral to being able to have a swift and transparent transition to the NBN. So, like I said, hopefully that answers a lot of the questions that we had coming in on the Facebook Messenger over the weekend and at the end of last week. But feel free, chuck a message in the comments, chuck a message in the Facebook Messenger, give us a call, jump on our Facebook page, jump on the website, centraltelecoms.com.au, or feel free to read back or watch the other episodes and just send us a comment on one of those. We get back to people as quickly as we can and give people the advice that they need to be able to get themselves moving forward. So hopefully that answers everybody's questions, and we'll catch you next week where we'll run through some more issues or more case studies around what we've done to help customers who have had issues, not just with NBN, but with phone lines, with fax services, with FPOS, with high caps machines. Okay, and we'll catch you all soon. See you later.